Hello everyone, good morning, good evening. Welcome to another PMP Q&A session. Today we will be discussing 10 more questions and these questions are from the entire exam content outline. Let's start question number 1. All right, so Vivek, you have chosen option A.
Yes, sir. So uh, if we look at the options sequentially, uh, if the stakeholder did not attend, we should go and review the communication management plan if actually the information has been given. And then the rest of the steps will follow. Like if the information has been given, then like we need to contact the stakeholder and understand the reason why he was absent. And if anything is missing, then we need to check the register. So I just thought in a sequential manner, and that's why uh, chosen option A, because that's the first step we need to take.
All right, thank you. Manmeet, you have chosen option D.
I was between C and D, but I thought first I should be knowing that if the communication has actually been executed, like as per the communication management plan, if the stakeholder was aware that there is going to be a gate review meeting, that should be the first step, and then it should be C, knowing the root cause why he did not attend it. So that's why I picked D.
All right, so you said you need to find the root cause. Okay, thank you. Mary, you have chosen option B. Mary, you are on mute.
Yes, I chose B because I believe the communication management plan is basically explaining how and what, and it doesn't really gives you a list of stakeholders. And I think that checking the stakeholder register would confirm how important he is, but I'm sticking with B.
All right, thank you. Mohan, you have chosen option A.
Yeah, this is kind of confusing, but so I think I was between A and B. This, uh, and the stakeholder register comes first, right? To confirm, but stakeholder register basically you identify the stakeholders and then you categorize them based on the importance in the organization and how close they are to the project, right? So, and it's not really to confirm the stakeholders' role. So I guess I was a little confused about the word role. So I kind of eliminated that and I chose A because first thing you want to do is check on the communication management plan to ensure that the stakeholders obviously were identified, but then what is the mode of communication, and that was related to the stakeholder.
Mohan, what's the difference between A and D?
A and D is in dog.
Yeah.
I think D is basically on the execution side, right? So if the plan communication was executed right per the communication management plan. But B is about reviewing it first, right? So you reviewing the plan, and then I don't know. I think it's a fine line, but I think A is basically the project manager is reviewing it.
And D is
Uh,
assessing, right?
he's actually assessing whether it was executed for the plan.
All right, thank you. So see, during a critical stage gate review meeting, one of the key stakeholders did not attend. What should the PM do first? So one of the things is stakeholders is a key stakeholder, and stage gate review is a stage review meeting or a phase review meeting that we conduct at the end of each phase. Option A, review the communications management plan to ensure all stakeholders were informed. So communication management plan does not have detail about actual execution of communication. It's a plan, right? If you want to know if communications have been planned or not, then communication management plan is the right document because it's just a plan. It doesn't talk about execution, right? So option A and option D both are discussing execution of communication. So review the communication management plan to ensure all stakeholders were informed. No, communication management plan does not contain this information. And same is the case with option D. A and D assess if the planned communication were executed. Communications management plan does not have such information. It just have information about planned communication. If certain set of communications are planned or not, okay? So A and D you can eliminate. Option B, check the stakeholder register to confirm the stakeholder's role and importance. Importance is already written. First, it's a stage gate meeting. Second, they are key stakeholders. And since importance is already written, so there is no point of reviewing stakeholder register. Correct answer is contact the stakeholder to understand the reason for their absence. You can use elimination technique, and you can also use the concept that we have been discussing again and again, that is direct communication. Have face-to-face or direct communication. So the best way to understand the reasons, as Manmeet mentioned, root causes, the best way to understand root causes is to contact the stakeholder and try to understand the absence, the reason for absence. Maybe they say we haven't received anything. Maybe they say we received, but there was an emergency, right? Maybe they say there was a miscommunication. So the efficient way to understand the root cause is directly contact the stakeholder and understand the reason for their absence. Correct answer is option C. Let's read the explanation. All right, next question.
I'm on my phone now. I can't get on my computer. Yeah. Question number two.
Please keep yourself on mute, everyone. All right, Robin, you have chosen option C.
I was divided between option A and C, but then what should the project manager do first? I thought that perform a root cause analysis would be the first thing to understand what the issue was, and then review with the stakeholder. So that's why I chose option C.
And Robin, what's the best way to do the root cause analysis? Okay, how to identify the root cause? Okay, just think about it. I'll come back to you if you have another.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anton, you have chosen option B.
Yeah, I think B will be the best way forward, because I think we discussed the same strategy before, sort of to come prepared and talk to key stakeholders. You have to have something to show, and I think having the group discussion with the team to identify even potential gaps would be best solution, because this is what you would come and sort of be ready for the discussion with the stakeholder.
All right, thank you. Mary, you have chosen option D. You're on mute.
Yes, because, yes, I apologize. I chose option D because the stakeholder is not satisfied, so I want to compare the actual against the plan requirements. And that's what I'm doing here on D before I can talk to the stakeholder and see why they're not happy. So just to compare the actual with the plan first with someone, conduct a product demonstration to compare the stakeholders' requirement compared to what we actually did first, and then I can do arrange a meeting with the stakeholders.
All right, thank you, Mary. Anton, you want to say something?
Yes, I believe we all have to keep this in mind, that probably all the questions are correct, and this is something that would work in this situation. But the question itself is, what should the project manager do first? So we really have to pick up one of these four that would make project manager take this action item as a first one. Okay.
All right. Absolutely. Thank you for explanation. So see what's happening. A stakeholder provided a detailed description of the requirement. So means requirement from the stakeholders are detailed, okay? Number one, there is nothing wrong with that. And the team members believe they have delivered the product according to these requirements, but the stakeholder is not satisfied. So means there is a difference of opinion or there is a conflict, right? Between these two parties. One party believes that we have delivered according to the promise. However, stakeholder is not satisfied, so it's a conflict. How we can approach this conflict? Option A, review the documented acceptance criteria with the stakeholder to identify any discrepancies. Option B, arrange a meeting with the team to discuss potential gaps in the product delivery. So team is already saying we have already delivered according to the requirements. So if they're already saying we have already delivered according to the requirements, there is no point of discussing the same thing with the team. If there is a conflict, we need to talk to the customer and ask, okay, what's wrong with the product? Why you're saying the product? So it says the stakeholder is not satisfied. So we need to understand the reasons behind dissatisfaction. You understand, everybody? And what's the best way to identify reasons for dissatisfaction? We need to ask stakeholder, okay, what's wrong with the product? We believe we have delivered according to the promise or according to the requirements that you submitted. However, you're not satisfied. So please tell us what's wrong with the product. So the best way to understand the reason behind dissatisfaction is again talk to the stakeholder, talk to the customer, right? So again, the same principle is being applied. Direct communication, right? Arranging a meeting with your team who are already believing that they have delivered according to the promise would not help in this situation. If customer is not satisfied, we need to understand the reason why customer is not happy. So correct answer is option B. Option C, perform a root cause analysis to understand the reasons. Again, it's a unilateral approach. We need to involve the customer. If they are not satisfied, we need to talk to them because we already believe that we have delivered according to the requirement. So doing the same thing again and again with your team without involving the customer would not help. So best way to understand the reason behind dissatisfaction is have a meeting with a customer or stakeholder and try to identify the reasons behind dissatisfaction, right? So option A is correct. Review the documented acceptance criteria. I think I have told option B is correct. No, option A is correct. Review the documented acceptance criteria with the stakeholder to identify any discrepancy, to see what's wrong. All other options are incorrect. A is right. Let's read the explanation. Also, one more thing, whenever there is a dissatisfaction about the product, do not ignore the option that has acceptance criteria in it, because decision to accept or reject is based on acceptance criteria. Okay. All right. Next question. All right. Carlos, you have chosen option C.
I am so sorry. I meant D.
Okay, go ahead. Why D?
Because the regulation has changed, and it will change the scope of the project, and it would be appropriate to submit a change request to the CCB, to the board, and see what they resolute.
All right. Thank you. Robin, you have chosen option B.
I thought that all the options A, C, and D would be asking for what the potential impact of the change would be. So the next step would be to assess the impact of the change and then be ready for A, C, and D.
All right. Thank you. Yashri, you have chosen option A.
Summer, I chose option A because informing all the stakeholders about the regulatory change and its impact on the project would be the first step. After getting the information that there is a change in regulation and it has halted your project. So though all the other steps B, C, and D will follow this, I thought A would be the first step, which the project manager will choose to do.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So let's read the question. It says, in the middle of project execution, a change in regulation has halted your project. What should the PM do next? So whenever you have an issue, right? So the first thing that you do is you document the issue in the issue log. So it's a change in regulation, which is an unknown risk and it has occurred. So it should go into the issue log, but that is not the option here, documenting the issue log. So once we document, step number 2 is we apply or we implement workaround. Workaround is a temporary solution, right? That is also not an option. Step number 3 is do a detailed assessment and then come up with the solution. Now, if you read the options, inform all stakeholders about the regulatory change and its impact on the project. Right now, we do not know the impact, right? So option A can't be the right answer. We don't know the overall impact. Conduct an assessment to evaluate the potential impact. Again, one of the principles is first do the evaluation, right? Before taking an action, first do the evaluation until and unless it's an emergency situation. Option C, escalate the issue to the compliance council for resolution. Whenever you see an option like escalation, think about it as a last resort. That's not the first option. Escalation is the last option. And also the option that says escalate and don't do anything, that can't be the right answer. So for example, if it says escalate the issue to the compliance council and work with them to come up with the solution, that makes sense. So whenever you see an option where project manager isolates themselves from the problem or put a burden or responsibility or shift the burden on somebody else, think about that option. That can't be the right answer, because PMP or PMIism is more like involvement and collaborative way of solving the problem, not a unilateral way. So C can't be the right answer. Submit a change request to the CCB for further action. I can see some of you have chosen option D. So submit a change request. We do not directly submit a change to the CCB. If you recall that flow chart that we discussed in the course regarding change management, the first project manager performs the preliminary impact assessment. You understand, everybody? Project manager performs preliminary impact assessment, and based on their assessment, they reject, approve, or forward the change to the CCB. So next step can't be forwarding the change to the CCB. So correct answer is option B, conduct an assessment to evaluate the potential impact of the regulatory change. Once you evaluate the impact, then you can inform the stakeholders or take a temporary action or workaround if you have that. All right, correct answer is option B. Let's read the explanation. All right, next question. All right, Vivek, you have chosen option A.
Yes. So all the three options B, C, and D are like type of like Scrum or Agile methodologies that can be used. Well, feature-driven development is also part of Agile development, but as the question mentions that integration was not correctly ensured while doing the development. So feature development will help but deliver the particular feature end to end, and that will also ensures that integration between all the components is intact and tested correctly.
All right, thank you. Mohan, you have chosen option C.
Yeah, I was not very confident about this, but basically I picked Kanban because of the aspect of continuous integration. So basically, if you allocate, the work in progress and you kind of limit the WIP, you could continuously integrate those aspects into, from development into other operations and ensure any integration. So, I mean, I don't have a very good answer, but it's rationale, but I played can.
All right, thank you. So let's read the question. It says you delivered the product in phases as it was an incremental delivery. However, at the end, the team struggles to ensure integration. So what happens? So for example, we keep on delivering functionalities and then we integrate them together and we get a fully functional product at the end of the product. Now, feature-driven development, FDD, it's a delivery method where we deliver features after feature. So we deliver a feature and then we plan for next feature and then we deliver it. Then we plan for third feature. So we plan by feature, we build by feature, we develop by feature, we deliver by feature, right? A feature is a complete functionality in all aspects. When a feature is complete functionality in all aspects, there is less need of integration because a feature itself is a complete functionality, right? And also, it doesn't talk about continuous integration. Extreme programming is a concept where you have short development cycle, for example, 1 week long iteration. And after you deliver a piece of functionality, you do continuous integration. So extreme programming focuses on continuous integration. Make sure that rather than you have a backlog of work at the end of the various cycles where you have such problem of integration, you do continuous integration. Develop a piece, deliver it. Develop a piece, deliver it, and integrate it with the previous one. So continuous integration is part of one of the extreme programming practices. So correct answer is option B. Kanban is a work visualization tool. It has nothing to do with integration. It's just a work visualization or work management tool. Like you have 3 columns: to do, doing, and done. It has nothing to do with that. Lean development is entirely different, right? Lean is more like minimizing waste from the processes, right? So correct answer is option D. Let's read the explanation. All right, next question. All right, Manmeet, you have chosen option B.
Oh no, okay, wrong again. To my understanding, the supplier has gone bankrupt, and this was identified in the risk register. To my mind, the risk register has been updated that okay, supplier has gone bankrupt. So I don't need to update the risk register because I found this information in risk register. So the next step should be implementing the risk mitigation action.
All right, thank you. Vivek, you have chosen option C.
Yeah. So I was like between option B and C, but before mitigating the actual action, we should like assess the impact. What is the real impact for that particular risk? So I give a more weightage to option C. Once we have the impact, then we can implement a mitigation action accordingly.
All right, but Vivek, it says this development was identified in the risk register, means it's already part of the risk register. If it is already part of the risk register, means that assessment has already been done. Then what's the point of doing the assessment or impact analysis again if you have already documented the event in the risk register? Does it make sense? You understand?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Robin, you have chosen option A.
Yes, I was going backwards and forwards between all four options actually. And in the end, I decided that the paperwork needed to be done first. The risk register needed to be updated to reflect the change. And that's what we need to do next. And then the other options would follow.
All right. Thank you for detailed explanation. Okay. Remember, there are two things. One is risk. Second is issue, right? Risk versus issue. Risk is something that is uncertain future event. Issue is something that is past or present that has occurred, right? Now here we see a key supplier has declared bankruptcy, and this development was identified in the risk register. Means you have identified and you have a plan, you have a mitigation action for this particular risk. Remember, whenever a risk event is occurred, the very first thing that you do, you implement the risk mitigation action because documentation has already been done. The event has been identified, it has been analyzed, it has been planned, right? You have mitigation action, you know the timing, everything. Whenever a risk is occurred, you implement a risk response strategy. However, there is a catch here. Risk response strategy or risk response is implemented by risk owner. For each risk, we have a risk owner. Remember the format of risk register, if you recall? One of the important informations in risk register is risk owner and risk action owner, right? We identify a risk, we analyze the risk, and we nominate risk owner because risk owner would be taking all the actions in the future. So whenever a risk is occurred, the first thing is we implement the risk response strategy. However, that strategy would be implemented by risk owner. So whenever a risk is occurred, as in this case, a key supplier has declared bankruptcy, and this was identified as a risk, the first action is inform the risk owner about the occurrence because they would be implementing risk response strategy. So whenever a risk is occurred, an identified risk is occurred, the first action is implement the mitigation action. And for implementation, you need to inform the risk owner, okay? Because they are responsible for that. Whenever an issue is occurred, now issue means you haven't identified it. What you do? You document it because it was not documented. So you document it in the issue log. Step number 2, if it is emergency situation, you implement a workaround. Step number 3, you do the assessment. You understand? So this is the sequence of activities if an issue is occurred. I hope you understand what's the difference between when a risk is occurred or an issue is occurred. Risk is occurred means you have identified that event. An issue is occurred means something that you couldn't identify. So correct answer is option D. Let's read the explanation. All right, next question. All right, Carlos, you have chosen option B.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing, but I think team building and workshops focused on conflict resolution and accountability would work.
All
That's what I
right.
can say.
All right. Thank you. Manmeet, you have chosen option D.
I was between A and D because A says that define roles and responsibilities in the matrix, and that should be communicated, and that actually gives us a review, something to lean upon, that who has what responsibilities and what they have not been performing. But what I thought D should be the good answer, because if there is an environment of autonomy and self-organization, and we allow team members to take their ownership, that is a healthy option. They should know what they're doing and they should own it, even if it's a faulty thing or it's a positive impact. So that's why I picked option D.
All right. Thank you. Mohan, you have chosen option B.
Yeah, I was kind of like Carlos too, that really I eliminated most of the options to pick B. A does not solve the problem according to me, because it's not a racy issue. People understand what the roles and responsibility is. So that's not the issue. So that could not be the solution. C, implementing a rigorous performance monitoring. That's reactive. D, foster environment of autonomy, self-organization. I feel like it might be good in the later stages of the team management, but really this seems to be like early stages of team. So I think B might just be the best solution in terms of having these workshops, authorization, and taking accountability.
All right. Thank you. So Mohan, we have discussed this, like we do not address the effect of a problem. We identify and address the root cause of a problem. So if we read option B, it says, conduct comprehensive team building workshop focused on conflict resolution. Conflict is the outcome here, right? If we read the question, it says, during a project, team members do not take ownership of faults and instead blame each other, leading to project delays and a toxic work environment. This is the impact. We identify the root cause. Okay, what's wrong with the situation, and we try to address that. The problem with option B is that it addresses the outcome. It's reactive approach. Like we are focusing on the conflict and we are ignoring the reason behind conflict. That's why B can't be the right answer. If we read it again, team members do not take ownership of faults and instead blame each other. That's the key point. Blame each other. When you can blame others, when you do not have defined rules and responsibilities, only then you can blame others. If the option says they do not take ownership of work, now maybe foster an environment of autonomy and self-organization would be helpful. But this situation is not just they are not taking the ownership. This is above and beyond that. First, they don't take ownership of faults. And second, they play a blame game. And when you can play a blame game, when you don't have defined roles and responsibilities. Correct answer is option A, establish a RACI matrix to clearly define roles and responsibilities and ensure it is communicated and agreed upon by all team members. And in RACI, why RACI? Because in RACI, you write who is responsible for this action, who is ultimately accountable and answerable for this answer. So accountability is directly addressed through a RACI matrix, right? That's why RACI is not the RACI is the right answer and all other options are incorrect. Implement a rigorous performance monitoring system that includes peer reviews and anonymous feedback mechanism. Again, it's a reactive, right? And conduct B and C and D, I have already explained. So correct answer is option A. Let's read the explanation. Mohan, quickly, you want to say something?
Well, I mean, I kind of looked at A and I thought about it for a second, but then really the question doesn't really say that there's a confusion regarding accountability, roles, and responsibility. That's why I didn't pick A. But I definitely wanted to pick it. Then that's why I went to with B. But I understand your point that B is reactive. But in the question, it doesn't say that there's an issue due to the roles and responsibility, right? It just falls and blame game, etc.
Yes, that's a good point. So see, if there is a blame game, solving the conflict would not help the situation, right? That is just one-time strategy. Okay, you would do a conflict resolution for this time, but you're not addressing the reason behind blame game. Why this is happening? You understand that? This would reoccur. So in order to handle that, you need to find the root cause and address that. So when team members can play a blame game, when there is a flexibility or there is no definition of roles and responsibilities, only then they can play a blame game. So in order to address that, you need to clearly define roles and responsibilities. If you do that, then they would take ownership, number one. Number two, there won't be a blame game and it won't lead to a toxic work environment. So the root cause is lack of roles and responsibility definition. All right, next question. All right, Carlos, you have chosen option D.
Yeah, honestly, I'm just looking at it in terms of private industry, and if you don't have any more budget, you have to prioritize and see remaining tasks based on available funds, and then maybe later see what you have and then inform the sponsor. I thought.
All right, thank you. Robin, you have chosen option C.
I excluded B and D. Why did I exclude B and D? Because that's already been done. The project budget has been revised 3 times. So B and D were excluded. So then I was choosing between A and C. And I thought that C needed to be done in order to create the funds, and then to inform the project sponsor would follow.
All right.
So that's what to do next is C. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Robin, what's wrong with option A?
Well, that was actually my first option, but I felt that option C would document the detail of what needs to be requested. So that should actually be done first before informing the sponsor.
All right, thank you. Rudy, you have chosen option A.
Yes. Yeah, I was just thinking that the first thing that I would do, and from past experiences, I would just let that project sponsor know right away, discuss what the shortfalls are and what the options are. So that's just the reason why I chose A. But like the other people are saying, I mean, a couple of them could be, in my mind, correct, but I just chose A.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's read the question. It says the product budget has been revised 3 times and a recent detailed report determines that you need more funds to complete the remaining portion of the project. What should the PM do next? Okay, remember, one of the PMIsms are takeaways. Always go for the option that does evaluation and assessment. Please keep it in your mind. First assessment, then you will be doing rest of the things, okay? And which assessment? Assessment where you talk about alternatives. So if we read option C, submit a change request for additional funding, it means you're taking action right away. So you got a report and report says you need more funds and you're simply proceeding with that. Does it make sense, everybody? You're relying on the report and you're proceeding with the same suggestion or proposal, like submit a change request for additional funding to the CCB. Reassess the project scope and prioritize remaining tasks based on available funds. Yes, this could be the option. But again, it is targeting one option, that is prioritizing remaining tasks. Option A, inform the project sponsor about the funding shortfall and discuss options. This is a comprehensive option that talks about various alternatives. So for example, there is a funding shortfall, you can do 3-4 different things. One, you can increase your budget. Number one, option number one. Option two, you can prioritize tasks. Option three, you can de-scope. You understand, everybody? So there are various options available to you. So the first thing that you need to do, you need to evaluate those different options, right? Option A says inform the project sponsor about the funding shortfall and discuss options, like what are available options, and then pick the one which is approved by the sponsor or the most relevant in the situation. Because the correct answer is option A. Option B, conduct a thorough review of the expenditure to identify cost-saving measures. There is no point of doing that because report already says it is determined you need more funds to complete the remaining portion. So there is no point of focusing on cost saving. And second, it's a one strategy only. Okay. Option C, submit a change request for additional funding. Again, you're taking action. And option D, reassess the project scope and prioritize. Again, it's one option. There's a comment, but would you discuss that with sponsor? Absolutely. Keep it in your mind. We believe that sponsor is someone who we consider or discuss things when we have a problem. No, with sponsor, we discuss things on regular basis. We seek advice. We update sponsor. So whenever we have a situation where there could be multiple options, we seek input from the sponsor. So if this is the situation, sponsor would be better positioned to tell you, okay, this could be the right answer. Do evaluation based on that. So if you have 3-4 options, discuss with the sponsor and then come up with the right answer. So correct answer is option A. Let's read the explanation. Okay, another tip. If there is an option that says do the evaluation of all available alternatives, that would be the preferred choice. That's the best thing to do. So the first option is do the analysis, understand the alternatives, and then approach sponsor. But here we do not have a separate option for alternatives. That's why we have chosen option A. All right, next question. All right, Vivek, you have chosen option C.
Yeah, so I kind of eliminated the options. So A is asking the project workflow and sequence, where we are not actually concerned with the scope and workflow and sequence. We are more towards like understanding the scope of the project. So eliminated A. Again, data flow and interactions between systems. It's too detailed illustration, so that cannot be like helpful to understand the actual scope. And D is also again talking about the detailed breakdown of task and deliverables. It's again going to too much into the minute details for task and deliverables. So, which gives me option C as the better understand, a better scope for the project.
All right, thank you, Vivek. Rudy, you have chosen option B.
Yes, sir. So I was just matching up. So it says project manager decides to use a context diagram, and I matched it up with illustrate to illustrate the data flow and interactions between the system and external entities. So I was just trying to see in my mind which one kind of matched up. That's why I chose B.
All right, thank you. Manmeet, you have chosen option B.
Context diagram, we have learnings from you a lot of on that diagrams and histograms and everything. So far, I learned from you is context diagram is something that outlines the relationship between system and entities. So that's why I picked option B.
All right, thank you. So yes, that is correct. We use context diagram in scope definition or requirement collection process. When we collect requirements about the product, we develop context diagram and we place the product in the middle, whatever product you would be developing. So let's suppose a piece of software you are developing. So we keep it in the middle and we see who would be interacting with the system. So for example, user, government or regulations, right? Vendor, right? Customer. So we look at these interactions, how these different actors would be interacting with the product. So based on those interactions, we come up with a list of requirements that we should have in our product or which should be able to fulfill those requirements or should have those functionalities which are required for those interactions. So context diagram is used during the requirement collection stage, and it is used to illustrate the data flow and interaction between the system and external entities. Option C, to understand the context of the product in which it will be used to develop a better strategy. No, it has nothing to do with strategy. It's just a requirement elicitation tool that we use to understand requirement at the time of scope definition. So correct answer is option B. Let's read the explanation. All right, next question. All right, Robin, you have chosen option B.
That was actually on the previous one. I was still reading through it, but
Okay.
I think I would go with option D.
Okay.
Because clearly there is a dispute here. 10 days was the cutoff time, and then it took 30 days for them to dispute. So I would say that, we have got an issue which needs to be looked at. So the dispute resolution mechanism is agreed in the contract maybe is the best route to follow.
All right. Thank you. Vivek, you have chosen option B.
Yeah. So with the PMI concept again, like we understand the contract and everything, but the empathy with the customer will better solve the problem and dispute. We can come up with a good way forward, being empathetic and understanding the situation.
All right. So yes, that is correct. One of the PMIism is be empathetic. Try to understand the situation. So yes, it clearly says the customer's project lead suddenly resigns, and therefore they could not provide necessary feedback on deliverables. So it's not something intentional, right? It is unintentional, and it is because of that emergency. So the first thing is we try to understand the situation, right? So be empathetic and understand the customer's situation, and then come up with a way forward. Maybe you would be discussing, you would be following contract, you would be having dispute resolution, or whatever you will be doing. So the first action is be empathetic and understand the customer situation. In day-to-day life, maybe we would be simply following the contract, right? But one of the PMIism is do not deal customers or vendors or service providers as different entities. Consider them as part of your team. The way you deal your team members, you should be dealing with others like that. So if there is a situation which is not in control of customer representative or third party, you need to understand the situation. So correct answer is option B, be empathetic and understand the customer situation. That's the first thing to do. Let's read the explanation. All right, so the important point is this approach helps in finding a mutually acceptable solution, even if it means revisiting the contract terms. Contract terms are not fixed or rigid. Based on situation, you can amend those, right? And for that, you need to understand situation of each other. All right, next question. All right, before we discuss this, there is a comment at the chat window regarding previous question, and it's an important comment. Let me go back and review this again. So comment is, being empathetic would not solve the problem. I feel like a meeting would resolve it. But that is not an option here, right? If you read option C, it says convene a team meeting to collaboratively come up with a way forward. So you're not incorporating customer here. Yes, if you have a meeting with the customer, that would have been the best option, right? But that's not an option here. That's why option C is incorrect. Okay, I hope it is clear. Let's go to the next question. Okay, Vivek, you have chosen option B.
Yeah. So force field analysis again, we are trying to understand what kind of forces are like helping and what are restraining the project. So that's the motive of doing this force field analysis. That's option B is saying. So what are the factors that can help, and that what are the factors that can create problems to understand in advance?
All right, Carlos, you have chosen option B.
Yeah, kind of the same manner. Identify and analyze the forces affecting the proposed change. Why is the resistance there, and maybe it can be addressed that way.
Absolutely, that is correct. And most of you have chosen option B. So B is correct answer, to identify and analyze the driving and restraining forces affecting the proposed change. So we have a change, and force field analysis say what are the factors in favor and what are the factors against, right? And then you see what you should do to make a decision, right? You understand? If most of the factors are against, maybe you won't be going with that change. You understand? If most of the factors are in favor, then you would be going for that. So correct answer is option B, to identify and analyze the driving and restraining forces affecting the proposed change. Let's read the explanation. All right, everybody, we're done with today's session. Just put your score in the chat window, whatever your score is in today's session. %, 40%, 40%, 50%, 50%, 60%. Okay, initially, when we developed these questions, I thought today's mock exam would be much easier, and I was expecting all of you to get 7, 8. But when we went through the discussion, I realized these were challenging questions because options were almost similar to each other. So real exam would be exactly similar to this, right? Why people fail the exam? Because of this. Because questions or options are so close to each other, it's very, very difficult to come up with the right answer. But good thing is that not all the questions would be like that. This is a portion of the question which we can consider as the most difficult part of the exam. But you will be having questions which would be so straight, and sometime you will be thinking like, am I going to pick the right answer? Because the question is so simple and easy. Because exam would be combination of different types of difficulty levels. So I can see 50%, 50, 60, 60, 60, 30, right? Anything that is above 50%, that's good. But again, you need to go through the content. If you understand the content, exam would be much easier. Maybe getting 60% in one exam would not a true indication that you are well prepared, or 30% is not an indication you are not prepared. So please, I emphasize again and again, spend some time daily, at least 30 minutes, go through the content. If you have my notes, just go through those. Those are just 10, 11 pages, right? Summarized version. You can go through that, and that would be helpful to you. You can just read it while traveling. Just go through the content. Try to understand these terminologies. Half of the exam would be solved if you understand the terminologies. And then half is, that is stuff where you have different situations, right? I hope it is clear. All right, everybody, thank you so much. I'll see you on Monday with an interesting lesson. Take care. Have a nice weekend. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.